Have you ever come home after a long day at work, only to find your child reacting in a way that leaves you unsure of how to respond? Perhaps your child suddenly starts screaming over something you find trivial, or they retreat into silence, unwilling to talk no matter how much you try to engage. For busy fathers, moments like these can make you feel powerless. You might wonder, what did I do wrong? Or how can I help my child manage their emotions better? The answer lies not only in what you teach your child, but also in how you respond and guide them when emotions arise. The Stoics teach us that we cannot control everything that happens, but we can control how we respond. Epictetus once said, "It's not the events themselves that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." Children are not born knowing how to manage their emotions. Just as you learn professional skills or how to lead a team, children need guidance and practice to master their feelings. But first, you need to understand that their emotions are not the problem. It's how we help them process those emotions that truly matters. The story of Lucas will help illustrate this. If you agree, please subscribe to the channel and like the video to encourage me to create more content. Now let's dive into the story. James, a software engineer in Boston, usually comes home around 6 p.m., just in time for dinner with his family. One day, as he opened the door, he heard his 9-year-old son, Lucas, sobbing loudly in the living room. Walking in, James saw Lucas sitting on the floor, his face flushed red and tears streaming down his cheeks. His wife, Sarah, stood nearby, looking helpless. "Lucas, what's going on?" James asked, trying to keep his tone gentle, even though he already felt tense. Through sobs, Lucas shouted, "Mom wouldn't let me play my game for 10 more minutes. I hate this. She never understands me." James felt his own frustration rising. After a long day at work, Lucas's yelling felt like the last straw. But James knew that raising his voice would only make things worse. Taking a deep breath, he looked at Sarah and said softly, "Let me handle this." James knelt down beside Lucas, meeting him at eye level. "You're feeling really upset, aren't you?" he said, trying to empathize. Lucas looked up, still crying, and nodded. "Can you tell me why you feel this way?" James asked. Between sobs, Lucas explained that he had been playing an online game with his friends, and leaving in the middle of a match made him feel like he was letting them down. James listened without interrupting, nodding to show he understood. When Lucas finished, James gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "I understand how you feel. If I were in the middle of something important and had to stop suddenly, I'd feel upset too. But do you think Mom made that rule because she wants what's best for you? If you don't get to bed on time, you'll be tired tomorrow." Lucas stayed quiet, seeming to process what his dad said. James continued, "Maybe we can handle this better next time. If you want to finish your game, you could start a little earlier. What do you think?" Lucas looked at his dad, his expression softening. "I'll try," he replied. The story didn't end there. The next day, James decided to sit down with Lucas to talk more about managing his emotions. He grabbed a piece of paper and wrote down 3 simple steps. Pause and take a deep breath. When you feel like yelling, try taking 3 deep breaths first. It helps you calm down. Name your emotion. You can say, "I'm feeling angry because." This helps us understand how you're feeling. Find a solution together. Instead of shouting, ask, "Can we handle this differently?" James explained each step slowly and had Lucas practice them. To make it fun, James even turned it into a game. Every time Lucas successfully practiced these steps, he earned a small star sticker for his achievement chart. It didn't take long for James to notice a difference. One day, when Lucas wasn't allowed to buy a toy he wanted, instead of yelling, he said, "Dad, I'm feeling really frustrated. Can we talk about this?" James couldn't have been prouder. Through this journey, James learned that managing emotions isn't just about teaching children what to do. It's about creating a space where they feel safe to express themselves and practice what they've learned. It's not a short journey, but step by step, it helped Lucas grow and brought James closer to his son. James realized that simply listening to Lucas's emotions wasn't enough. He knew that without guiding his son on what to do when anger or sadness overwhelmed him, Lucas would continue to feel lost in moments of emotional outbursts. One weekend afternoon, James decided to spend time teaching Lucas how to manage his emotions. He took him to the backyard, where they often played basketball together. But today, instead of playing, James brought a ball and a sturdy cardboard box. "You know, emotions are like this ball," James said, holding up the ball. "When you throw it too hard, it can bounce back and hurt you. But if you control the force, the ball will go where you want it to." Lucas curiously watched his dad, starting to grasp the point he was making. James continued, "Now, I'm going to teach you 3 simple steps to handle your emotions." James handed the ball to Lucas and said, "When you feel angry, hold this ball and take 3 deep breaths. Then, count backward from 5 to 1 in your head. This will stop you from acting impulsively." Lucas tried it. At first he seemed awkward, but after a few tries he started to feel calmer. James added, "Remember, each breath is like calming the emotional ball inside your head." Next, James placed the cardboard box in front of Lucas and said, "Imagine this is an emotion box. Now, think of the emotion you've been feeling most recently and write it down on a piece of paper." Lucas thought for a moment, then wrote anger on the paper. He placed it in the box, and James explained, "See, when you name your emotion, you start to take control of it instead of letting it control you. Emotions aren't bad, you just need to know how to keep them in their place." Finally, James asked Lucas to think about a recent situation that made him upset. Without hesitation, Lucas brought up the previous night when he wasn't allowed to keep playing his game. James smiled and said, "All right, now think about what you could do to avoid that situation in the future." Lucas replied, "Maybe I could start playing earlier, or I could plan with my friends to play on the weekend." James nodded. "Exactly. There's always a solution if you stay calm and think." Placing a hand on Lucas's shoulder, he said, "Emotions are like water. If you know how to direct the flow, they'll never drown you." A week later, James noticed a significant change. One day, when Lucas felt disappointed about not being able to buy a toy he wanted, he sat down, took deep breaths, and said, "Dad, I feel sad. Can we get it next time?" James couldn't hide his pride. These small lessons and practices weren't just helping Lucas control his emotions, but were also strengthening the bond between father and son. James knew that for Lucas to truly learn how to manage his emotions, teaching alone wouldn't suffice. The best lessons don't come from words, but from actions. If he wanted Lucas to stay calm when angry, James needed to demonstrate that calmness himself. The opportunity arose one Saturday morning. Lucas was playing with Lego on the living room floor, while James was in the workshop fixing a broken chair. Everything was going smoothly until James heard a loud crack. Lucas came running into the kitchen, holding a snapped Lego piece, his eyes red with tears. "Dad, I broke an important piece. I can't finish my ship anymore." Lucas shouted, his voice filled with panic. James looked up. In the past, he might have said, "It's just a toy, no need to overreact." But this time, he took a deep breath, remembering what he had taught his son. Setting the chair aside, he said, "Lucas, I can see you're really upset about this Lego piece breaking. All right, let's figure out how to solve it. What do you think we should do?" Lucas stayed quiet, still visibly upset. James continued, "Can you try taking a few deep breaths like we practiced? Then we can look at the Lego piece together." Lucas hesitated for a few seconds, then took a deep breath. James sat down next to him, carefully examining the broken piece. "Actually, I think we can glue this back together," James said. "It won't be perfect, but it will still work. Or we could try to complete the ship without this piece. What do you think?" After a moment of thought, Lucas agreed to try gluing the piece. While James carefully glued it back together, he said, "See, things aren't as bad as they seem at first. Sometimes you just need to pause and look for a solution." That evening, James faced a real challenge of his own. He discovered an email from work stating that a project he had spent 3 months on was postponed indefinitely. Frustrated and disappointed, he slammed his laptop shut, catching the attention of his wife, Sarah, who glanced up in concern. Lucas, sitting on the couch, noticed too. "Dad, are you angry?" he asked hesitantly. James paused. His son had observed him, and this was the moment to set an example. He took a deep breath and slowly turned to Lucas. "Yes, I'm feeling frustrated," he admitted, "but I think I'll try your method, okay? I'll take some deep breaths." Lucas chuckled softly but sat up and joined his dad. "Let's breathe together, Dad," he said. After 3 deep breaths, James felt the tension in his chest ease. "Thanks for reminding me," he said. "I feel better now. And now I'm going to figure out a solution for this, just like we did with the Lego piece." Lucas beamed, proud that he had helped his dad. From these moments, Lucas began to understand that emotions aren't something to hide or fear. He saw that his dad also experienced anger and frustration, but James's way of handling those emotions provided a powerful example for him to follow. When we lead by example, we don't just teach our children. We build trust and foster deeper connections within the family. James realized that every time he controlled his own emotions, it wasn't just a lesson for Lucas, but an opportunity to strengthen the entire family. A week later, James and Lucas were building another Lego project one evening. Lucas was excited about his creation when his older brother, Ethan, 13, walked into the room. Ethan glanced at Lucas's work and suddenly exclaimed, "That looks ridiculous. Why does your ship have such a weird antenna?" Lucas froze, his face turning red. "You don't know anything. That's how I wanted it," he shouted. Ethan shrugged and walked away, and Lucas immediately slammed his hand on the table, breaking part of his project. James, who had been working nearby, witnessed everything. He got up, walked over, and sat down next to Lucas, who was fuming and on the verge of tears. "Lucas, I can see you're really upset, but don't be so quick to destroy everything," James said calmly. Lucas turned to him, his voice filled with frustration. "Ethan always makes me feel stupid. He's always criticizing everything I do." James nodded in understanding. "I get how that feels, buddy. But instead of letting your emotions take over, how about we try to see this from a different perspective?" Lucas frowned, unsure of what James meant. James smiled. "Let me give you an example. Imagine you're Ethan. Maybe he doesn't really think you did something bad. Maybe he's just teasing you because he wants to play with you, but doesn't know how to say it." Lucas looked at James skeptically. "But he doesn't have to say it like that." "You're right," James agreed. "Ethan could have said it better. But if you only think he wanted to upset you, you'll feel worse. If you think he might be trying to get your attention, you might feel less angry and respond differently. What do you think?" Lucas thought quietly for a moment, then slowly nodded. James continued, "Why don't you try talking to Ethan? Ask him why he said that." Reluctantly, Lucas got up and walked over to where Ethan was sitting. "Ethan," he said, his voice small but steady, "you said my ship looked ridiculous, but I worked hard on it. Why did you say that?" Ethan, slightly surprised by Lucas's approach, looked at his younger brother. "Oh, I was just joking. I think it looks pretty cool, but I didn't know how to say it without making you mad." Lucas was taken aback. "Really? Really?" Ethan replied with a grin. "Actually, I think the antenna is a great idea." Lucas turned back to James, his face lighting up. James smiled and gave him a thumbs up of encouragement. After the conversation, James sat down with Lucas and explained further. "You see, sometimes the way people say or do things doesn't always feel good. But if you try to look at it from another perspective, you might realize their intentions weren't as bad as you thought. The key is to always try to understand before reacting." Lucas smiled, proud of how he had handled the situation. James added, "From now on, whenever you feel upset with someone, try to think, maybe they said or did that for a reason I don't know yet. This will help you feel calmer and find a better way to handle things." Through this experience, Lucas learned that feelings of anger or hurt often stem from how we interpret others' actions. By viewing situations from different perspectives, he could not only calm his emotions, but also open the door to better understanding and connection with those around him. James realized that this lesson wasn't just for Lucas. It was a reminder for himself to practice the same approach in his work and life, where misunderstandings could arise at any time. Let's build a community of kindness by subscribing to Stoicism for Success right now and sharing it with those you wish to see live with kindness and strength like us. Let's spread these positive values together. That evening, after dinner, James invited Lucas to the backyard. The sunset cast a warm orange glow over everything, creating a peaceful setting for their conversation. James carried a small notebook he had prepared beforehand. "Lucas," James began, "I want you to know how proud I am of you today." Lucas looked up, surprised. "Why, Dad?" "For the way you handled things with Ethan," James explained. "You didn't yell or make a scene like you used to. Instead, you paused, listened, and talked to him. That was truly amazing." Lucas smiled, but still looked puzzled. "But I just did what you told me to do." James nodded. "That's true, but it takes courage and patience to do that. Not everyone is willing to try looking at things from a different perspective, especially when they're upset. You practiced a very important skill today." James opened the notebook and showed Lucas a small list he had written down. First, took deep breaths and didn't yell when angry. Second, asked questions to understand Ethan's intentions. Third, smiled and made peace instead of staying angry. "These are the things you did so well today," James said, "and I want to reward you with a special star for this." He pulled out a golden star sticker and placed it in the corner of the notebook. Lucas stared at the star with pride in his eyes. "Do you really think I'm that good, Dad?" he asked. James put a hand on his son's shoulder. "Not just good. You're getting better every day. But remember, it's not about being perfect. What matters is that you keep trying to manage your emotions better each time." Lucas nodded enthusiastically. "I'll keep trying." The next day, Lucas's mom, Sarah, noticed the change as well. When Lucas struggled with his math homework, instead of throwing his pencil and yelling like before, he paused, took a deep breath, and asked, "Mom, can you help me? I'm feeling a little confused." Sarah couldn't hide her joy. That evening, she said to James, "Your patience in teaching Lucas is really making a difference. Our boy is learning to be calmer, and that's because of you." James simply smiled. "It's not just me. Our whole family is changing, and Lucas is the clearest example of that." Whenever Lucas successfully managed his emotions, James and Sarah made sure to praise him, but not with generic compliments like, "Good job." Instead, they focused on specific actions, saying things like, "I'm really impressed by how calmly you handled Ethan's teasing," or "I appreciate how you paused and asked for help instead of getting upset." By receiving genuine recognition from his parents, Lucas felt more motivated to improve. Each small action built on the last, helping him develop confidence and emotional control in various situations. James realized that praising children at the right time and in the right way isn't just about encouragement. It's about helping them see the value of their efforts. Lucas understood that he didn't need to be perfect, but pushing himself to improve and grow every day was what mattered most. The story of James and Lucas teaches us that helping children manage their emotions is not just about giving instructions. It's about creating a family journey of connection and growth. Building a safe environment for children to express themselves, modeling emotional management, and offering specific, meaningful praise are foundational steps in nurturing this essential skill. Lucas learned that emotions aren't bad, they're opportunities to understand himself and others. James demonstrated that a parent's calmness and patience not only teach children, but also strengthen mutual respect and connection within the family. This journey doesn't require perfection, but it does require consistency. Every moment a parent pauses to listen, every specific word of praise, and every action that sets an example shapes a child's ability to manage their emotions. Start small with how you interact with your child. Today's patience is the foundation for tomorrow's growth and resilience in your child. Thank you for watching this video. Let's support our wonderful community by hitting subscribe and turning on notifications right now. Show everyone that you're living kindly by liking the video and sharing your experiences in the comments. Take action now to spread positive energy. Bar.